super spooky. She's gonna go in the oven. Two of those kids have to go in the oven, but she actually goes in the oven.
Don't ruin the story. All right, are we ready?
Yeah.
Hansel and Gretel.
Can't see. Okay, now.
I was going to say, excuse me. Hansel and Gretel. Okay, I'm going to scooch in. Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Once upon a time, there were two children called Hansel and Gretel, lived in the forest with their father and stepmother. Their father was a woodcutter, and he was always poor. But one winter, he became poorer than ever. We cannot even feed Hansel and Gretel properly, he said to his wife one night. Why bother to feed them when we can't feed ourselves, said his wife. We could leave them in the forest. They would never find their way back.
No, she's a mad mother.
Yeah, she's not. Well, she's not a good one at all. She's not a good woman. The woodcutter was horrified by this idea, but his wife was cruel and strong-willed, and eventually he was forced to agree. Fortunately, hunger had kept Hansel and Gretel awake, and they had overheard their parents talking. By the way, even if we didn't have food, I would never put you in the woods. Just by the way. I love you too much. Don't worry, sister, said Hansel. I have a plan. He slipped out of the house and gathered the pocketful of white pebbles. In the morning, the woodcutter and his wife gave the children crust of bread and took them into the forest. Every so often, Hansel would stop and look back at the house. What can you see, boy? Asked his stepmother. I can see my little white cat on the roof, replied Hansel. Nonsense, snapped stepmother. All you can see is the sunshine on the chimney pot. But Hansel saw neither cat nor the chimney pot, for he had only turned around to throw down a pebble from his pocket. Soon they were deep into the forest. The woodcutter built a fire and told the children to wait while he and his wife went away to chop wood.
What is a pebble?
Like a little rock or gravel. Hansel and Gretel waited and waited, but no one came back. Night fell and the wolves began to howl. How does a wolf howl? Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid, sister, said Hansel. The moon will be out soon and we'll be able to find our way home. When the moon rose, the white pebbles gleamed like silver coins and guided the children back to the house. The woodcutter was amazed and overjoyed when his children returned, but his wife was furious. She had failed once again to get rid of the children, but she would not fail again. In the morning, for the second time, the woodcutter and his wife led the children deep into the forest. Hansel stopped every so often to look into the forest. He stopped every so often to look back at the house. What can you see, boy? Asked his stepmother. I can see my little white pigeon on the roof, said Hansel. Nonsense, snapped his stepmother. All you can see is the sunshine in the chimney pot. But Hansel saw neither pigeon nor chimney pot, for he had only turned around to drop crumbs from the crust his father had given him. Again the children were left to wait by the fire, and again the wolves began to howl. But when the moon rose, no crumbs gleamed to guide the children back home, for birds had eaten them. For 2 days, Hansel and Gretel wandered in the forest, looking for a way home. There were only berries to eat at night, and at night they sheltered wherever they could, hoping that the wolves would not find them. On the third day, weak with hunger, they saw a beautiful snow-white bird and followed it. As they stumbled into the clearing, they saw in front of them a house made of gingerbread. The roof was a sponge cake, and the chimneys were twisted sugar canes, and the windows were made of sugar baked as clear as glass. Hansel rushed forward and broke off a piece of the roof. As soon as he ate it, the little voice sang out, "Nibble, nibble, little mouse. Who's that nibbling on my house?" Hansel answered, "Do not fear. No mouse is near. It's only the wind in the trees you hear." He lied. Start eating somebody's house. He broke off another piece of the roof and Gretel pulled out a window pane and started eating it. Just then the door of the little house opened. Out came an old woman. She smiled at the children and beckoned to them. Come in, little mice," she said. "Stay with me for a while. I have good food to eat and comfortable beds for you to sleep in." Hansel and Gretel were happy to go inside, and after they had eaten, they fell back asleep and went straight to bed. The little woman crept upstairs to look at the sleeping children. She touched Hansel's rosy cheek. "Yes, I shall have that one first," she said, and cackled softly, for she was really a horrible witch who lured little children to the house and ate them. Ugh, creepy. In the morning, the witch locked Hansel in a cage and ordered Gretel to cook him a meal. "We must fatten that one up," she said. So Hansel dined like a king while Gretel ate only the scraps. Oh, he's plump. And she's getting skinnier and skinnier. Every day the witch went to the cage and asked Hansel to put out a finger so she could feel how fat he was getting. She was very short-sighted, and every day Hansel put out a little bone for her to feel. A chicken bone. After a month, the witch grew impatient. "Fat or not, that one is for the pot," she said, and she ordered Gretel to build a fire for the oven. Then she asked Gretel to climb into the oven to see if it was hot. Gretel saw that the witch was meant to slam the door and roast her at the same time as her brother, so she pretended not to understand. "But, how do I open the door?" she said. "Like this," said the witch, and she showed her. "But how do I climb in?" asked Gretel. "Climb in like this," and said the witch, and she crawled into the oven. And once Gretel slammed the door behind the witch, was burned to death. "The witch is dead! The witch is dead! The wicked witch is dead!" sang Gretel, and she ran to release Hansel from the cage. The children were released, she released Hansel from the cage. The children snatched up a bag of the witch's gold and ran away from the house as fast as they could. Before long, they had run right through the forest and back home. The woodcutter cried with joy when he saw them, and his wife could say nothing at all, for she was dead and buried long since, which was good enough for her. Oh my gosh.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.